Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we're going to be ranking all of the new releases that I've read so far this year. I have 18 books to talk to you guys about today. A little bit of ambience in the background. If you guys hear purring, my cat is sitting next to me and I'm just gonna let him chill because he seems to be enjoying himself. So if you hear some rumblings, that's probably what it is. In these 18 books, I do have 5 DNFs that I will talk about first that I'm not going to rank in any particular order because I didn't finish the books, and then I will rank the others from the ones I enjoyed the least to the ones I enjoyed the most. I will be trying to keep each of my descriptions of the books and the reasons why I liked or didn't like a book to a minimum, to very short, succinct sentences, hopefully, fingers crossed, because I do have 18 books to talk to you about. But if you are intrigued or want more information about any of the books I've mentioned, please let me know in the comments down below and I would love to tell you more. I will also provide you guys right now with some just stats for all of these books. My average star rating for all 18 books, if I include the DNFs as a 0-star rating, would give me a 2.6 star average. If I don't include the DNFs in my average rating, it was a 3.6 as my average star rating. So the DNFs aren't great. But without the DNFs, I do think that I am still picking up books that I am enjoying for the most part. I would like more on the upper end. I believe 33% of the books that I'm going to talk to you guys about are a 4-star or higher, and I have purchased 4 of them for my collection, which means I really enjoy them and would like to reread them. But I would like 2024 to deliver a little bit more than it has. Starting with my DNFs, and a couple of these you will have seen on one of my most recent videos, that is Rakesfall, which I read 15% of, and A Short Walk Through a Wide World, which I read 45% of. Rakesfall, I just don't think that the synopsis really I don't think my expectations were correct for this book. I was expecting two individuals whose souls were tied together and kind of their love story throughout time, and that's definitely not what the book was. It was, I think, in my opinion, it was overly complex and it just felt very disjointed in the 15% that I read. A Short Walk Through a Wide World, I had very high expectations for, so that's part of the reason that I ended up DNFing it. However, I do think that the story suffered some from inconsistencies and the choppiness of the story itself. This follows a 9-year-old girl who has some type of fatal illness come upon her where she cannot stay in a location for more than a few days without getting deathly ill and dying. She also can't travel back to, she has to move essentially to keep living, and she can't travel back to the places that she's already been or she'll die. So I was really excited about this, but because of the time gapping, her moving around so much, it's really hard to connect with the characters. There's also a dual timeline going on, but the character isn't super knowledgeable about the timing. She struggles to remember her own age, and so that adds a weird confusion to the storyline as well. Yeah, there were a ton of things that I just really wasn't vibing with this book, so I ended up putting it down. Fathomfolk was another DNF, and I really do think that this book struggled for me because of the fact that it's YA. You follow 2 main characters who are from different sides of the tracks of a half-sunken city. It's half sunk in water, and there are humans and water creatures living in this city together. There is a definite caste system. The water is polluted, and if you essentially don't have the means to move to a better place or put yourself in a good situation within the city, then you live within the polluted waters. And I really did like the sea creatures that were introduced, the world that was introduced, but the relationship and the characters are definitely written YA. The dialogue is written YA. The relationship was a little cringy to me at points and very frustrating, and so I decided that it just wasn't going to be a book that I was going to enjoy, so I decided to move on. How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying was my next DNF. I DNF'd at 50%. This book features a main character who is kind of in a Groundhog Day situation, and she is supposed to be the hero of the story, but she can't figure out a way to defeat the Dark Lord, and so she decides to become the Dark Lord. It is full of slapstick humor and D&D-esque world building, which I did enjoy. However, the slapstick humor got a little grating because I think the book is too long, and the female main character is a little grating as well. She's overly sexualized, and she brings up sex at the most random places in the book, and I just found it distracting. I don't think it added to the story. It just kept getting in the way of me really trying to figure out what was happening in the story and really enjoying some of the other characters that were involved. And so, yeah, not for me. And my last DNF on this list is My Throat an Open Grave, which I read to 35%. I also think that this suffers from being YA for me. I think YA is just something that I am very picky about. I read to 35% of this, and you follow a young girl, teenage girl, who lives in a town that is very, very religious, and there is local lore of who is called the Lord of the Woods. And the Lord of the Woods comes into people's homes and steals their children and leaves things in their place. And the Lord of the Woods has been used in this town to keep children calm, and if you're not well behaved, if you don't mind your parents, if you don't follow social norms, then the Lord of the Woods will come and get you, is what the kids are told. Which is fine. It had an ominous atmosphere at the beginning. However, there is a point in time where the main character does end up traveling into the woods for various reasons and meets the Lord of the Woods. And I don't know, because I didn't read past this point, but I believe a romance is eventually going to strike up, and it was just cringy to me as well. And there was also a very heavy emphasis on religion in the town, and them really pushing the religion, controlling people in the town and the children. And it's just not a narrative I enjoy reading, and so yeah, this one wasn't for me either. On to the books that I actually did read. So coming in at number 13th is Cascade Failure, which I rated a 1.5 star. This is on the list of books that I wish I would have DNF'd, but I did not. I did complete all of it, and yeah, I was really disappointed by this. It's a sci-fi book that features a team that are investigating the deaths of planets. Along with doing that, they capture a fugitive, and the fugitive is traveling with them as they investigate. I found the characters to be really inconsistent. The overall culminating events did not make sense to me. There was also just really unusual relationships in this book. I couldn't figure out if people were supposed to be dating, or if they were supposed to be friends, if they were supposed to be family. It was very odd. Coming in at number 12 is The Murder of Mr. Ma, which I rated 2.75 stars. This is a Sherlock Holmes inspired mystery that features two Chinese men who travel to or are already in London, and they are investigating the murders of some other Chinese immigrants. This book was weird. There is a masked figure that comes into play within the book that I found unusual and out of place within the world that we had created. I also think that the book pairs things that are very serious with things that are funny, and it's a weird mix to me. It didn't hit, and I just was a little confused by the tone that was trying to come across. So yeah. Number 11 is The Last Murder at the End of the World, which I rated a 3 star. I was really excited about this book. It follows an island that is the last island on Earth, and there is a fog that has killed everybody else, but the island has some type of protective barrier. However, one of the scientists on the island gets murdered very early on in the book, and there is like a countdown to when the barriers are going to fall and it's going to kill everyone on the island. It's essentially like the general premise of this. I think the ending of this book, the culminating events, were overly complex, which sometimes I enjoy if it's done well, but there was so much telling instead of showing that I just felt like I was reading almost like author notes of like, this is what I want to have happen, but I didn't see any of the events. And so that kind of took me out of the book. I also think that this author in particular, and I had this problem with the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hart, 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle as well, which I did enjoy that book, but I find this author's writing very dry. And so if the story isn't pushing me or pulling me to keep reading, I do find it's difficult to really get into and immerse myself in the story. However, I do think that the mystery did have some really interesting points, some interesting plot turns and things like that I did enjoy. So 3-star for me. Number 10 is Dreadful. I rated this 3 stars as well. So this features a character named Gab who wakes up one day in a dark wizard's bedroom and doesn't know how he got there, doesn't have any memories of the past days, and believes that he needs to escape the castle, only to figure out that it is his castle. He has a princess in the prison that he's not sure why he captured, and he has a whole bunch of goblin minions, and it's supposed to be his story of trying to figure out what happened to him. This was supposed to be humorous, and I was very disappointed in the humor. I really just felt like the main character was a bumbling idiot the entire time, and that's not funny to me. I do think that the side characters, specifically the goblins in this, are really entertaining, and especially when you get to know them. So that aspect I really did like, and there were components of the book that I found interesting. The world and the town, kind of what the author tried to do with found family, I kind of enjoyed. It just wasn't quite enough for me. I think it was too much leaning into the humor and the idiocy of what was going on that I was having a hard time connecting with the characters. Number 9 is The Griffin's Egg, and this is a 3-star for me as well. This is a middle grade, and so I think that, once again, just like YA, middle grade is often hit or miss for me, and I do think that this is very young middle grade. You follow a young girl who I believe's name is Phoebe, who's wandering through the woods, runs into an aggravated goblin. I love goblins, if you haven't noticed. And this goblin is protecting a griffin's egg. It's the last griffin's egg. And in trying to help this goblin out, Phoebe ends up wandering into this magical world where there are trolls, there are evil witches, and a whole bunch of different obstacles and dangers that she did not realize exists, and she has to figure out how to get herself back home. I do think it's very cute. It's just written very young, and I think that because of that, I also felt like some of the story was a little disjointed, and I think sometimes that if authors are writing for very young audiences, they will skip certain aspects because they're trying to keep like the action going, and I do think that this book suffered from some of that as well. Number 8 is Incidents Around the House. This is one I just recently finished, and I rated this a 3-star as well. This is a Josh Malerman. This was my first Josh Malerman, and I do think that this author does a really good job of creating an eerie atmosphere. You follow an 8-year-old girl. You are in her perspective for the entirety of the book. The audiobook does have a child speaking voice. I don't know if it was a child that was actually narrating, but it sounds like a child is talking to you the entire time, which I really enjoyed. Some reviews say that they found it weird because you're constantly in the dialogue of a little kid. The kid does seem to act younger than 8 years old, but whatever. This kid has a creature in their closet that used to come out at night, but is starting to come out more and more frequently, that she calls the Other Mommy. And this Other Mommy definitely has some nefarious feelings to it, and it keeps asking this young girl if she could go into her heart. And so the readers follow this young girl through these experiences, trying to figure out what to do, and the adults in their life get involved as well. So it is very creepy. I think that the ending suffered quite a bit for me because nothing is really explained. The ending I think I expected, but I did want there to be more details and more explanation throughout the storyline of what actually was going on and why. And it seemed to me that the adults were just guessing the entire time, and none of the guesses were ever reflected upon, or they didn't do any research to figure out if they were correct. Like there were just missing components that I think really could have brought out the creepiness, the spookiness of the story. So the ending just kind of fell flat for me. Number 7 is This Wretched Valley, which I rated 3.75 stars. This is a book that features, I think there's 4 characters, and they are traveling to a cliff face that has never been documented before, and 2 of them are rock climbers. I think one of them's a biologist, and I can't remember what the other one is, maybe a technology specialist. But they, at the very beginning of the book, you fly over this area, see this cliff face that isn't supposed to be there, and they think like, this is our chance, we can go out and like make our name on this cliff face. Well, when they get to the local town, the locals tell them not to go into the area, that people disappear in that area all of the time. There are definitely spooky vibes going on. I think that the atmosphere of this book and where the author goes with some of the creepy elements, it was a really fun read, a really creepy read, definitely something I would not read at night. And it definitely has some gore in it, so if that's something that you don't like, maybe avoid this one. I do think that this one fell flat again at the end for me. Not quite so much as the Josh Malerman, because there is definitely some explanation, but I think it was a little rushed. And I think that if the book was maybe 50 pages longer, it could have been a 4 or even a 5-star for me. I wanted a little bit more to the end. Number 6 is Gogmagog, which I rated a 4-star. This is in my part 1 for the Read Until I Get a 5-Star vlog. So if you want a lot of details, go and check out that video. I'll link it in the cards and down in the description. But Gogmagog features a character named Katie, who is a very old woman. I will not tell you how old, you'll have to figure that out yourself, who in the past has ferried people across the river that she lives next to, down to the capital city of Ludwig. And this used to be dangerous because of things in the river, things along the river. However, it's become more and more dangerous over time. There was a dragon that was killed in the proximity of the river, and now that dragon's ghost haunts the river. And this is probably the most unique book on this list. And I can't wait to read the sequel. I think this series is going to be a duology, so I think there's only 1 book left. And depending on what happens in the sequel, I might raise my rating for Gogmagog. The reason I rated a 4-star and nothing higher is because there are a lot of elements, a lot of world building elements specifically, that are not explained to you. And I think the world is so cool. I just wanted more of it. Katie ends up having to ferry some individuals down the river again, which is not something that she has done in a very long time. And as she does that, you are literally going through the dragon's body, like the ghost dragon's body, which I just found really intriguing. And we run across a lot of characters in the world that are a lot of fun, but we don't get a lot of backstory. And it's very complex, but in a good way, but also in a way that I want more. So I'm hoping that I will get some explanation in the second book. We'll see, but so far, it's been an interesting read, to say the least. Number 5 is The Djinn Waits 100 Years. This I rated a 4.25 star. This is a fantasy horror, but really it's super light on both. So it really reads more like, I don't know, maybe a contemporary about family dynamics and grief, but it definitely has some horror components. You follow a father and daughter who move into this huge condo-esque building that a lot of people have moved out of because it's considered to be haunted. They recently have lost the mother of the family, and so there's grief involved in that and dealing with loss. And the condo that they move into is haunted by a djinn. I definitely think I wanted more of the djinn component because they are definitely a side character and not present for the majority of the book, but they do add in some very eerie, atmospheric, beautifully written scenes about the condo and the past that has gone on at the condo that I really enjoyed. I did want more of that. But I do think that the story was interesting. The elements that you end up finding out, the mystery behind the condo and the haunting that's going on, is a really intriguing story to read. But don't go into it thinking that it's going to be super scary, because it's really not. We are now in the top 4, and the 4th spot goes to The Tainted Cup, which is by Robert Jackson Bennett. And this is a fantasy mystery series. I rated this 4.5 stars. I think that this is the perfect blend of fantasy and mystery. It has both. Many fantasy mystery books that I have read focus either on the fantasy or on the mystery. The other is definitely a subplot, and I think that this is a perfect 50-50 split. You follow two main characters who are Sherlock Holmes and Watson-esque, and they are trying to solve the really gruesome murder of a political official in the area who was a person who was in control of the walls that are in this nation. So this nation is a seaside nation, and they have these giant walls on the seaside to protect them from these monsters that come out of the sea and will essentially destroy towns and wreak havoc. And so one of the political people is murdered in a really gruesome way, and these two come in to try and solve the murder and hopefully protect the walls from future damage. It's really engaging, really. I loved the main character, or not the main character. The main character is Djinn, who is our Watson-esque character, and then the other kind of main character, but you see her less, is Anna, I think is how you pronounced it. And she is a hoot. She does not give a rip about what anybody thinks, and she is smarter than everybody else in the room, and she's going to let them know it. And I absolutely loved her. I especially loved her and Djinn's dynamic duo and how they solved the mysteries. There are also some really cool side characters in this that I genuinely enjoyed. So it's a good book, and I can't wait for the second one to come out. Coming in at number 3 on the list is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This book is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I rated this a 4.5 star. I do think that I like this less than the first book, but I love the side characters more in this book. I'm not going to tell you much about the plot of this since it is a sequel, but if you haven't read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, you follow Emily, who is a person who does not like other people. She's very much engrossed in her work, and she is creating an encyclopedia of fairies. So there are a whole bunch of different fae in her world, and she wants to document all the differences, where they live, how they interact with humans, and things like that. And she has a partner whose name is Wendell, and you also follow him. He's very charismatic, definitely the opposite of Emily. And they travel to in the first book, they travel to I think, Nordic area and are studying some fairies that have never been documented before, and Emily gets herself into a little bit of trouble. So this series is very cozy, but it's also high stakes, if you can be both at once. And the fairies that you come into contact with, especially a couple of the really cute fairies that you come into contact with, are a lot of fun to watch. And yeah, I have a lot of fun with this series. I can't wait for the third. Number 2 on this list is The Book That Broke the World, which is the sequel to The Book That Wouldn't Burn. And I rated this a 4.75 star. I did give a more detailed explanation of my thoughts on this in my most recent 5-star vlog, so I will link that in the cards and down in the description as well. If you haven't heard me talk about the library series, I talk about this series a lot. You follow two main characters, Ivar and Lavira, in the first book, where they come from different areas. Ivar is living in a library. His entire family has been imprisoned in a library for generations, and he's trying to find his way out. Lavira lives in what's called the Dust, which is outside of the city limits, outside of the city walls, and they're definitely people that are looked down upon. But because of circumstances within her village, some really dangerous circumstances, she ends up traveling to the city and has to deal with people looking down on her. And their stories intertwine in a way that I'm not going to describe to you, but it's freaking amazing. The plotting in these books is phenomenal. The writing is beautiful. The relationships that the characters have within both books are really fun to follow and lovely. And there's some really cool discussions as well on knowledge being used as a war device, and also learning how to live with people who may not look like you. So I've really enjoyed the series, and I can't wait to continue whenever the third comes out. But they definitely give me just warm fuzzies whenever I read these. The writing is, like I said, it's beautiful, but it's also I don't know, it's so immersive. The library in this, if you are a person who likes books about books, you have to give these a try, because the library alone is worth the page count. This one's not bad. This one's, I think, 370 pages, but the first one I think was around 500. So, but it's worth every page. The #1 spot goes to the Book of Doors, which is another book that is in that 5-star read until I get a 5-star. This is the 5-star that I ended with. And I'm so excited that I found what could very well be my favorite book of the year. Right now, this has the crown. It is my favorite book of the year so far, and it's by a debut author, which I'm really excited to see what he writes next. This follows a main character named Cassie who works in a library, or no, she works in a bookstore, and one of the patrons ends up passing while he's at the bookstore, and he leaves her the Book of Doors. And she finds out that this Book of Doors allows her to travel anywhere in the world just by opening a door. And you get to follow that side of the adventure, her traveling the world, and that was amazing. But you also get to see this nefarious kind of underbelly of the story as well, where there are people who are looking for this book, and she gets herself into some situations that she has to figure out how to get out of. There's an entire world that she did not realize existed that she's introduced to because of this book. So yeah, I absolutely love this. This is also a book I would consider as good, which is incredible since its debut. The plotting in this book is chef's kiss. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. The writing is also very beautiful, very immersive book. It gave me, the traveling aspect of this book gave me Addie LaRue vibes, which I absolutely love. And yes, so this is my #1 new release of the year, also my #1 book of the year so far, and I'm really excited I got to it. Those are the 18 new releases that I have read in 2024 so far. Have you guys read any new releases this year that you've absolutely loved or absolutely hated? I would love to chat with you guys about what you've been reading as far as new releases go. If you don't feel like leaving a comment and you just want to leave like a little emoji, leave me a little door for the Book of Doors. And yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.